So obviously, we've been hearing talks that Amir Khan and KELL BROOK are in talks, in negotiations to make a potential fight. Now, there's several other times that this fight has been in talks or in negotiations to happen. I was not really confident that it was going to happen. The reason is because I feel like Amir Khan had other options. Now, in my opinion, I think Amir Khan at this point knows that he doesn't have any other options in terms of a big fight before he retires. So like he before, in the past several years ago, he was waiting in the timeline for example, a Mayweather fight or a Pacquiao fight or something of that sort. But I think at this point he knows that he doesn't have them options now. Pacquiao's wrapped up with the elite fighters in the welterweight divisions, the likes of like the Errol Spencers, the Ugases, the Keith Thurmans, the Terence Crawfords. I mean, he's just on a whole nother level compared to Amir Khan at this point. And as we know, Floyd Mayweather's doing exhibition bouts. So Amir Khan's two fights that you really wanted, that he was willing to stall everything for, and he was willing to stall the fight with KELL BROOK for, them two fights are out the water. So there's no way them two fights are going to happen. So in his opinion, he's thinking, you know what, I need to get a fight before I retire, a big money fight. And I guess I'm going to give KELL BROOK a shot. And I think he's even admitted in interviews that he on purpose didn't want to give KELL BROOK a shot because he felt like KELL BROOK was being disrespectful to him and didn't respect him enough. So at this point in time, if he's willing to make come out and clean and actually come out with that and say that to the press, unless he's completely lost his marbles, I think he's gotten to the point now where he's probably gonna make the fight. And I think the fight's probably gonna happen either this year, December, or probably early next year. The reason why I think this is because I think Amir Khan knows that his career is coming to an end, and he wants to make one big payday before he retires. And he's made a lot of money in his career, but I think he just wants to solidify one big payday, and then he can finally ride off to the sunset. Now, I'll be honest with you, like, this fight, it's not as compelling as the fight would have been if Amir Khan and KELL BROOK was in their prime. So when KELL BROOK won the fight, won the IBF title, if that fight would have been made then it would have been very compelling. After he made 2-3 defenses of his title, if that fight would have been made then it would have been compelling. At this position right now, it's not as compelling, right? But I still think it's a compelling fight. Now, the reason why I think this is, if you compare it to the Mayweather versus Pacquiao fight, Pacquiao at that time took he had several hard fights, and he also had a knockout loss to I think he was Juan Manuel Marquez. He had a knockout loss to Juan Manuel Marquez, and plus I think he had a loss against I think it was with Timothy Bradley, which was a robbery, and he had several other hard fights. Well, at that time, if you compare him to Pacquiao, Mayweather was relatively unscathed during that same time period. So when they fought, I feel like all the advantages were tilted in Mayweather's favour. I mean, he had the right style to beat Pacquiao anyway, but on top of that, he took less damage. On top of that, he still had his reflexes about him. He wasn't as shot-worn as Pacquiao was. On top of that, he didn't have to deal with the trauma of getting knocked out the way Pacquiao did. So in my opinion, this is a bit different to that, because if you look at both Amir Khan and KELL BROOK, both of them have taken absolute shellackings in their career up to this point. I mean, if you look at KELL Brook's last fight was against Terence Crawford, and Terence Crawford knocked him out, I think, in the second round. If you look at Amir Khan's had a loss against, I think, Crawford or something like that. And on top of that, like, he's been knocked out by Canelo, he's been knocked out by Danny Garcia. KELL BROOK's been knocked down, like, he had his eye socket smashed in by Errol Spence. He's had one eye socket broken by Golovkin. I mean, both of them have taken so much punishment. So in a weird way, it cancels each other out, because the fact is, if both of them have taken so much punishment, I mean, at this point, if they both have taken so much punishment, they're both in a position where both of them are as broken as each other. So if they're both as broken as each other, it makes a more compelling fight. With the Mayweather versus Pacquiao example, you had Mayweather, who was relatively unscathed, while you had Pacquiao that went through all this trauma. But with the KELL BROOK versus Amir Khan situation, both of them are completely damaged goods. Now, in my opinion, both fighters being damaged good doesn't necessarily mean that both of them, that you can't get a compelling fight out of that, because you can. I mean, we all know how weak Amir Khan's chin is. If Kell Brooks lands on him, I mean, I think there's a very good chance that Kell Brook knocks him out. But on the other hand, I think Kell Brook's punch resistance is gone now, and plus he's got 2 broken eye sockets. So if Amir Khan blitzes him in the first round, there's a very good chance that Amir Khan stops Kell Brook. So in my opinion, this fight it's not as compelling as if both of them were in their absolute prime. So if you talk about the Amir Khan that beat Luis Collazo and the Amir Khan that beat Devin Alexander, if he fought the Kell Brook that beat Sean Porter, that would have been an incredible fight. I think that would have been a very fun fight. But at this point, both of them are close to each other in terms of the amount of damage both of them have taken. Like, Kell Brooks had 2 broken eye sockets, and he's been knocked out in his last fight against Terence Crawford. And Amir Khan's been knocked out countless times at this point. He's been knocked out by Danny Garcia, Prescott, Canelo. I mean, he's taken a lot of damage, and he's been in loads of wars with Maidana, Lamont Peterson. So both fighters have been through a lot. So they're both in a similar level at this point now. So I think that makes the fight compelling enough to watch. So in a weird way, when I first heard that they were negotiating, my immediate gut reaction was to say, you know what, forget this, man. They're trying to take us for mugs. I mean, why are they trying to make this fight now? It's past its sell-by date. But now, thinking in further reflection, both of them are damaged as each other. So I think there's a good chance that the fight could be quite compelling. So because of that reason, I think I'm kind of looking forward to this fight, and I actually hate to admit it, because I feel like both of them have kind of made mugs of us fans, because for the longest time they could have fought each other, but they never did. But at the same time, now they're going to announce the fight, we're going to buy the pay-per-views, and we're just going to get mugged off again. And the fight is nowhere near as interesting as it once would have been, but at the same time it is interesting, and I'm looking forward to the build-up of this particular fight as well. I mean, it's fairly obvious that Amir Khan and Kell Brook don't like each other, and the fact remains that if they have this heated rivalry with each other, they're probably in the press conference going to talk about very personal things. And even though I'm not usually a fan of stuff like that, like fighters' personal lives and all this, I just can't help with Amir Khan and Kell Brook. I mean, I just find it interesting to see them both go back and forth, because you can tell between them two it's a genuine grudge. They both absolutely hate each other, and on top of that, I think something's happened between them two that makes them both hate each other now. And the best way to settle it is in the ring. So yeah, I'm actually looking forward to this fight. As ashamed as I am to admit it, I'm actually looking forward to this fight, just because of the fact that both of them are as damaged as each other. If they both go into the ring, I mean, it could. There's so many scenarios this fight can play out. Amir Khan could be outboxing Kell Brook the way he was outboxing Canelo in their fight, and then out of nowhere Kell Brook just lands a right hand and just stops him. Or Amir Khan could just blitz Kell Brook in the first round and knock him out the way Terence Crawford knocked out Kell Brook. I mean, there's just so many ways that this fight could potentially go, because both of them are just completely damaged goods. So in a weird way, I'm happy that this fight, you know what, I'd rather this fight happens than it does not happen, because you just don't want another Junior Witter versus Ricky Hatton situation where both fighters hated each other. Both fighters were in the same weight class, but for whatever reason they just couldn't fight. You just don't want that to happen again. So even though the fight is past its sell-by date, I'd rather it happens than it doesn't happen. Like, even though the Mayweather vs Pacquiao fight was past its sell-by date, 5 years past its prime, I'm glad that fight happened, like, rather than it not happening. Sometimes you just need closure on a situation. I just want the fight to happen. Just get it out the way. Just make the fight happen. Just make it happen. I mean, just do it. I mean, stop fucking around and just do it. Just make the fight happen. I mean, we've waited long enough for this. I mean, just do it at this point. It's just ridiculous at this point. We need to see this fight, and we need to find out who is the best welterweight in British boxing of our era. Is it Kell Brook? Is it Amir Khan? I mean, it's time for us to find out. I mean, it's time for us to know, like, who is the man. At this point in time, resume-wise, everyone will probably say Khan because he's fought more fighters. But at the same time, the best way to find out is for them both to fight each other. So that's my opinion on this particular fight. Tell me your opinion. Are you still excited to watch it? Do you still want to see it? Do you want to see what happens next? Do you want some closure on this entire situation? I mean, this beef has been going on for years now. it's been almost a decade, and they could have fought. Like, I think it's good to get some closure on this situation, just end it on this note. So yeah, that's my opinion. Tell me your opinion, and like and subscribe to the channel. I've got a lot more content coming your way. Peace out.